Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Sweden and we're going to have a look at a beer from another brewery that I've never had anything from before. But this is a beer that I think will be very interesting. One, because this brewery carries a very good reputation. Two, it's a style of beer that I really love but I don't get to try all that many of them. And three, this is an anniversary beer and usually those turn out to be really quite interesting. So yeah, three reasons why this will be quite an interesting review, I think. For this one then, we are going to go to Umeå in the very north of the country, and we're going to have a look at my first beer from U&Me Beer. So this one comes in at 8.7% ABV, and this is the 10 Imperial Radio, which was brewed to celebrate U&Me's 10th anniversary. So this beer was released as part of the Lokal och Småskaligt assortment in Systembolaget on the 1st of October 2020, and yeah, like I say, I love Imperial Radios. I love the big kind of malty sweetness that they have and usually the big orangey characters that you get out of them, but as I say, it's a style that you don't see brewed all that often. So if you guys do have any recommendations of Imperial Radios, then do let me know about those in the comment section below. Probably one of my favourite ones that I ever had was called First Blood from 8 Wired Brewing Company down in New Zealand. I remember drinking that in Galbraith's in Auckland actually, and that's still to this day, I think that's maybe the one that really got me onto the whole kind of Imperial Radio style. So whenever I see one of these I get very excited and just buy the thing. So that was the main reason behind buying this one. Of course, you don't see too many Imperial Radios out there, so fingers crossed this is a good one. As I said, this is my first beer from U&Me Beer. I do actually have a bottle of their Imperial Pike, which is their Imperial Stout, in my fridge, and I've had that for a few months, but I think the main reason I didn't review it already was because I really struggled to find information on this brewery when I looked the first time, but this time I got a bit more lucky with newspaper articles and stuff, and I was able to compile a good set of history notes for the brewery. So yeah, you will see the Imperial Pike review appear at some point later, but I can't guarantee exactly when. It is an Imperial Stout, so it will sit there for a little bit longer, so it's you know, the IPAs and stuff do have to take priority over the Imperial Stout sometimes, just to get so that the beer is fresh, of course. But yeah, very curious to review my first beer from U&Me Beer. Nice to have these guys and introduce them to you finally here on the channel, so I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well, and of course a very happy 10th anniversary to them. So yeah, let's see how we get on with this beer then. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done, or I will do I should say, from U&Me Beer in the future. There's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about U&Me Beer then, on to my brewery notes. So as I've mentioned to you already, U&Me Beer are based in Umeå in the north of Sweden, and they were founded back in 2010 by a group of 10 teachers. So I think they used to teach at the Norra Gymnasiet, if I remember the name of the school properly, but they are gymnasium teachers. So these guys are Benny Norén, Göran Westberg, Thomas Dahlström, Lars Nordström, Carl Magnus Häggström, Martin Almerud, Hans Lerner, Kjell Lundgren, and then Håkan Borström. So many of these guys had been doing whiskey tastings together for a number of years, and initially they wanted to start a distillery together, but they realised that this would be a massive project and they wouldn't get any results from it for at least 3 years, because you know, this is how long, this is the minimum length of time that you have to age whiskey for. But they turned their attention to brewing beer instead, and the main man behind creating the recipes for the beers is Göran Westberg, but he shares the brewing, or at least he did initially, with the others, and most of it was done on the weekends. So they opened up a premises in the Rudbeck industrial area of the city, and they launched their beers in the autumn of 2011. So they've gradually expanded the brewery over the years, and by 2017 they were producing around 15,000 litres of beer per year using a 500 litre brew kit, and they also had a 200 litre pilot kit as well to brew test batches. But over the following years they've continued to expand the brewing capacity. I couldn't find a figure for how much they brewed in 2019 unfortunately, but they do have plans to extend the brewery further from what I understand. But as of November 2020, when I'm filming this review for you, they've produced 34 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and that kind of shows you that they are really doing a lot of tweaking the recipes and stuff like that, and focusing on the quality rather than the quantity. You know, 34 beers over 10 years. Yeah, 3 new beers a year roughly. So yeah, it kind of shows that they are really spending a lot of time focusing on the recipes and just trying to get things done well. But yeah, you can order the U&Me beers throughout the country here in Sweden through Systembolaget. So yeah, Imperial Pike, I know, is a very well thought of beer, so I'm looking forward to reviewing that one a little bit later on. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about U&Me Beer for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all those different beers that they've done. So yeah, let's have a closer look at this one then and see how we get on. So as you can see, the artwork in this is very, very nice. It's quite modern and quite simple, which is pretty cool. It does say on the back here, it does have a little bit of a blurb about the beer. So it says here, a strong beer interest, a love of local handcraft, and happy laughs in good friends' company during long brew days has always been U&Me Beer's foremost drive. As we have now completed 10 years. This is weird. This is difficult to get my brain to translate this just now. But it says, as we have now completed 10 years, we think that we wanted to do sometimes something a little bit different. So we wanted to brew this Imperial Red Ale with barley malt and American hops, the Columbus, Amarillo and Centennial, and naturally Umeå's fine water. So basically, skål, cheers to everyone. I think I've translated that roughly right. It's always when you do the videos and you're trying to keep a pace with these translations, it can sometimes be a little bit difficult. But yeah, basically Imperial Red Ale, this one, hopped with Columbus, Amarillo and Centennial. So I think this should be quite nice. Amarillo, as we know, is that big, oily, orangey hop. Centennial gives you that kind of lemony, sherbety sort of thing. And Columbus is the classic American bittering hop. It's quite a spicy one. So yeah, this beer, I've got high hopes for this now that I know it has Amarillo in it. And basically I bought this one because I like the style. So, as I say, U&Me Beer, they do have a very good reputation, so I'm very curious to see what how this one turns out. But yeah, there you can see on the back, U&Me Beer AB, Högisvägen 7B, Umeå. So yeah, these guys are from very far north. They're not the furthest north brewery that I've come across though. I have had, probably the furthest north brewery that comes to mind at the moment would be Hjemmedalen Hantverksbryggeri, but I know there is another brewery further north than that are very, very close to the Norwegian border, way in the north of the country. I can't remember for the life of me what their name is, but I have reviewed one of their beers here on the channel before. But yeah, there are breweries further north than Umeå. Is that Norrbotten? I forget if that's Swedish Lapland or if that's Norrbotten up there. Yeah. But yeah, the northern counties in Sweden are massive. There's lots and lots of little towns just kind of spread throughout the mountains and the forest and things. I do need to get up there and explore a little bit. I've explored South Sweden quite a bit, but not North Sweden actually. I think the furthest north I've been is Uppsala so far, so we'll need to fix that at some stage. But yeah, as you can see, we've got this beer out now and it's poured very, very nicely. So if I shine the light through this one, this has a lovely, nice kind of ruby, coppery type colour to it actually. There's a solid finger and a half, would I say a finger and a third, a finger and a half of a frothy, I would say very light kind of beigey coloured head. There's one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of that head there, but overall it does look very, very nice. There's a nice degree of haziness to this one as well, but obviously it's nowhere near as big and hazy as one of these New England double IPAs that are going around just now. But yeah, I have to say, in terms of an Imperial Red, it certainly looks the part, and I'd be very curious to know what the malt base in this one is. Sometimes these can just be spot on, maybe a little bit of Vienna, probably a good bit of caramel will be in this one. The thing of course that affects the colour of your beer is indeed the type of malts that you use. Probably there's a little bit of red rye or something like that in here too. But yeah, it certainly looks like a lovely beer, this one, kind of what you would expect in terms of appearance. if you definitely what you would expect in terms of appearance from an Imperial Red Ale. So yeah, let's take a closer look at that aroma and just see how we get on with this one. Oh, that does smell pretty good. My nose is still a tiny little bit blocked, but I can still smell it quite well. So yeah, for me, this one, the malty side of this beer and the fruits and everything just go together really quite nicely. For me, the Imperial Red was always a style of beer. It wasn't about being punchy in any one regard, it was just a really good blend between the malts and the hops. And as I've told you on the channel before, I love these big orangey, malty leaning beers. I always used to love a kind of Amarillo forward West Coast IPA, and I suppose the Imperial Reds for me were just taking it a step further in terms of malty sweetness. It's the Scottish sweet tooth really that that comes out in these beers for me. But yeah, straight away with this beer, you smell a lovely kind of bready base to it. Lovely little bit of a white bready character there. You've got a nice little bit of a there is a nice little bit of a kind of wholemeal brown bready sort of thing, which I really like. So yeah, the aroma that comes out of this is just lovely. The base of the beer I think is really nice. There's a good little bit of a sweet caramel to this one. You get some nice McVitie's digestive biscuity notes to it as well. Yeah, it's definitely got a nice it's got everything you'd expect from the malt base. The more and more I smell of it, the more it does lean a little bit more towards the kind of brown bready side of things. Yeah, it really has a lovely kind of brown bready character to it in my mind. So yeah, lovely brown bready base, little bit of white bread and bread crust in there, sweet caramel. Yeah, definitely a bit of a sweet caramel, some nice kind of lighter McVitie's digestive biscuity notes in there, one or two little woody notes, maybe even a tiny little hint of nuttiness in there, but yeah, quite bready, quite caramelly. That's kind of what you want from an Imperial Red. On the hoppy side of things then, let's focus on that now. You do have that nice big floral aromaticity. That's the Columbus that's going to give you that. Columbus has that lovely big sort of spicy note to it, which I love. I absolutely love the big spicy notes from Columbus. Gives you a hell of a bitterness to the beer. But yeah, the aroma of this one I think is lovely. So yeah, nice big kind of spicy floral aromaticity. There is a little bit of a lighter grassiness to this one, which I think is very nice. But yeah, the fruits for me really come out very nicely as well. So straight away you get that big oily orange from the Amarillo. That's really apparent in this one. You do get a little bit, I would have guessed that there was maybe a little bit of Cascade in this as well, to be honest with you, from the aroma. If I was blind smelling this, I would have thought there was a bit of Cascade, because you do get just a little touch of a red fruity kind of a little bit of a red fruity kind of figgy sort of thing out of this one, which is quite nice, and it does remind me of Cascade. One of my local breweries back home in Scotland, they've got a Czech style Pilsen beer that uses a lot of Cascade, and some of the fruits that you get in that really kind of come out in this one for me as well. So it does have a wee bit of that figgy kind of cascadey sweetness to it, which I really like. There's a nice little bit of a citrusy zest to this beer as well, which I think is great. So yeah, the aroma out of this beer on the fruity side of things, lovely big oily orange, quite a bright lemony citrus, and you've also got a really, as I say, you've also got a really nice just kind of figgy, juicy, red fruity note underneath this as well. So yeah, big oily fruits to this one, and that's kind of what you want from an Imperial Red Ale as well. So yeah, it certainly strikes me that this is going to be quite a nice beer, and at 8.7%, yeah, you're getting into the sort of double IPA category. I don't know whether I would consider the Imperial Reds as a sort of derivative of IPAs, but usually they kind of are actually a slightly more malty and also slightly more oily, fruity version of the IPA. So yeah, I really like how this one goes together. It's a thumbs up from me in terms of its aroma, but now we're going to taste this one. So this one is the 10 Imperial Red Ale, coming in at 8.7% ABV from U&Me Beer in Umeå in the very north of Sweden. Let's get stuck into this one. Slanget, skål, and a happy 10th anniversary to U&Me Beer. Cheers. That's a nice beer. That is very nicely done. I'm going to say thumbs up to them straight away with this. Yeah, you can feel the one thing they talk about Umeå was water, and to be honest, for me, this is the thing I notice quite a lot with Swedish beers generally, and I think it coming from Scotland as well. We've got very good tap water, at least, you know. It's one of the things that we always joke about. We do in Scotland. We are almost determined that we have the best tap water in the world. So, but yeah, Sweden, Norway, Finland, and stuff like that. Obviously, these countries could rival us for that, I guess. But yeah, that you can just feel this is a lovely big beer, and this is one for me. I think this one kind of opens up a lot more on the aftertaste. I think this is one where the flavours take a little bit of time to develop, but yeah, it's a lovely example of the style. So I'm just going to say straight away, thumbs up to U&Me Beer for this one. Yeah, this is lovely. I really like how this one goes together. So straight away with this beer, then you get that nice you do get a nice little bit of that bready malt base there. But I think it doesn't feel too heavy in terms of its bready content. I think that's just because of how clean the beer feels from all of those from all that lovely Umeå water. But yeah, it's got that lovely kind of white bready, brown bready sort of base to the beer, a little bit of bread crust. That blankets the middle of your palate, middle third of your tongue and the back third of your tongue. So as you go towards the back third of your tongue, you'll feel the breadiness does thicken up a little bit. There's a bit more of a kind of grainy bitiness to the beer on the back third of your palate. You can feel the brown bready notes just kind of thickening up a little bit, and yeah, you do get a little bit of bitterness on the back third of your palate. But then as you move further forward into the middle third of your tongue, you can feel that the thickness of the beer just drops down a little bit. It just drops down a little bit, and then in the middle of your palate you can feel you've got that nice, it's actually a slightly more kind of crisp bready base that the beer has, and then on top of that you start to get the more kind of brown sugary elements out of the beer, which I think is very, very nice. So yeah, the malty side of this beer I think is it's really, really very solid in my opinion. I really like how this how it goes together. It's got it just blends so well with everything else. So I'm going to say yeah, thumbs up to U&Me Beer for this one. If this is a sort of benchmark for their other beers, you can see why these guys are, you know, so highly regarded. I've heard quite a few people have told me this is a brewery that I do need to check out, and I'm glad that I'm finally getting around to it. But yeah, as I say, middle third of your palate, you've got that nice kind of crisp brown bready base. You've got a little bit of a more oily brown sugary note sitting on top of it. So in the very centre of your palate, you do have that big sweet kind of caramelly note. You've got a good little bit of a biscuity character as you move further out from the centre of the palate, and that all goes together very, very nicely. Actually, I really like how all of that pieces together. And yeah, the thing I would say about this malt base is it's actually quite simple and straightforward, but it really just works. And you know, I like beers like that where it does really just work. So yeah, if you go to the front corners of your palate and then move diagonally back, you will get one or two little woody undertones to the beer. But yeah, I think it's quite a nice, the malt base. I think the graininess of this beer does build a little bit the further you go into the aftertaste, and that builds a good bridge with the more hoppy, bitter aspects of the beer as well. So I really like how this one goes together. So in terms of the hoppy side of this beer, then let's kind of focus on that. In the back corners of the palate, there is a little bit of earthiness there, but then as you move further forward, you get the Columbus coming out really, really nicely. You get that big kind of spicy floral aromatic note from the Columbus really showing its face there. But yeah, as you reach the front corners of the palate, it's definitely more spicy and floral and aromatic as you reach the front corners of your tongue. But then round the very front curve of the palate, the beer is distinctly more kind of grassy and light, if that makes sense. And then on that front third of your palate, just behind the front curve of your tongue, if you like, that's where you get the nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters just push their way out of the beer. So yeah, the fruity side of this beer I think is very, very nice. The, how would you say, with this one straight away, you do get towards the back of that front third of your palate. I do think there is a wee touch of a dark kind of grapefruity note out of this one. I think Columbus can give you just a little touch of that kind of grapefruity note there, but that kind of sits on the border between the middle third of your palate and the front third of your palate. You really do get that quite strong, dark grapefruity flavour. But as you move further forward from that, it gets very, very oily, and then you get the more kind of juicy, orangey flavours coming out of the beer. So yeah, I really like how all of that just pieces together. So yeah, as you move further forward in that front third of your palate, you can feel the orangey notes. The big oily Amarillo kind of sits there, but it does, on the very front part of that front third of your tongue, but it does spread back a little bit. And then as you reach the very front tip of your tongue, that's when you get the more kind of citrusy, zesty notes from the Centennial pushing their way out of this beer. So this beer, for me, it's one of the more kind of big floral and spicy and kind of more zesty, beers that I've had in the Imperial Red category in terms of its hoppiness. I think the hoppy side of this beer is very, very interesting, but I certainly like how this beer goes together, and it gets a big thumbs up from me in that regard. I think, you know, U&Me have pulled off a really solid one with this. Maybe this is one that you could let it sit for a little bit and let some of the bitterness drop out a little bit, but I'm not sure if that would kind of benefit the beer or be detrimental to it. Imperial Reds are always a bit kind of funny that way, I have to say, because sometimes, yeah, letting the bitterness drop just slightly can be beneficial to them, because it lets the oiliness of the fruits come out a little bit more. But at the same time, the Imperial Red is basically a derivative of the double IPA, and you do want to have these fresh, to be honest with you. I'm actually not 100% clear on what the difference between, for example, a double IPA and an Imperial Red would be. Is it just the inclusion of a bit more caramel and a bit more, you know, red rye or Vienna malt or something like this? I really don't know, actually. I've never had a go at homebrewing one of these styles, and I've never looked at one of the recipes just to see what it is that makes the red ale. But I would say that it's usually the brown sugars, the level of brown sugars and the brown bready notes in these that make them the Imperial Red ales. You also have the amber ales, the American ambers, which are quite similar to these as well. And again, I don't know what the main difference between an American amber and an American red ale would be, but regardless, it's a lovely style, and I like that big oily orangey character that it has, and that kind of big oily brown sugary note. And I think U&Me have done a really solid beer here, but definitely one of the more bitter examples of the style that I've come across, one of the more bitter and zesty ones. So thumbs up to them for this. Yeah, it's awesome. So in terms of the mouthfeel then, what are we going to say about this one? I'd say this is kind of bottom end of full bodied for me. The carbonation is very smooth. The mouthfeel overall is quite oily, and yeah, you've got some really nice. You've just got a really nice blend of things going on with this one. I think it's a really nice. It's just a really nice take on the Imperial Red style. So yeah, I think this is it's a lovely kind of just big oily beer for me, this one. In terms of the hoppy bitterness, I think this has got to be about 70-ish IBUs. This one does have a good little bit of a bitter kick to it, and when the Columbus is involved, you know, Columbus is going to give you a little bit of that bitter proverbial foot up the backside, if you like. It's going to give you a nice little bit of a bitter kick, and this beer certainly does that. The malt base for me is nice and bready. There is a bit of grainy bitterness to it, but it's got a lovely oily brown sugary note as well. And you've got a good little bit of a big juicy oily fruity character to this one too. So I really like how the fruity side of this beer goes together. It's a big thumbs up from me, and you know, the mouthfeel I think really suits the flavour profile that this beer has gone for. Definitely one of the more kind of bitter Imperial Reds that I've come across, and that's not a bad thing. It has the big oily orange flavours that I like. It has the big kind of brown sugary notes that I like as well. So yeah, take a little bit of time and enjoy this one before you you know, take a little bit of time to enjoy this one, but I think they've pulled off a very, very nice beer here. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. So yeah, this one was the 10 Imperial Red Ale, coming in at 8.7% ABV from U&Me Beer in Umeå in the very north of Sweden. I can feel the alcohol with this one going to my head a little bit. This is what the Imperial Reds always do. They are, I don't know, they're just almost a little bit more potent actually. But yeah, this has been a very nice introduction to U&Me Beer, and I've enjoyed reviewing this one for you here. I don't get to review too many of these Imperial Reds, so as I say, give me a few examples or give me a few recommendations in the comment section below, but let's leave it at that. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from U&Me Beer as well. We will return to these guys at some point in the fairly near future, but thank you again for watching, and I will catch you guys very soon. The 10 Imperial Red Ale, 8.7% ABV from U&Me Beer in Umeå in the very north of Sweden. Slange, skål, cheers.